And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up, we'll talk high school basketball and hockey as the winter sports season continues, plus special guests. Coming up at 6:20, we'll be joined by the head boys basketball coach of the Merrill Bluejacks, Troy Pieper. And then at 7 o'clock, our student-athlete guest for this week, Jake Furr. He was supposed to be here last week, but we had a miscommunication. So Jake Furr, the East-Merrill United goaltender, he'll be joining us at 7 o'clock here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Well, Jeff Gress, I'm glad the snow has held off a little bit, so we are able to get you in and our guests in here tonight, but welcome back.
Yeah, this is a nice little break between the ice and the snow that's coming, and made it here safely.
Yep.
And did not slip in the parking lot, so we're good to go.
Yeah, and you'd like to mention, you do got a little ice on the parking lot. Hey, since we have the Merrill boys basketball coach Troy Pieper joining us in a few minutes, let's start off talking about high school boys hoops here to start things off. Wisconsin Valley Conference, the Wisconsin Valley Conference campaign got underway last Friday with 3 league games, and preseason pick DC Everest rolled past Wausau East 94-69. Marcus Hall had 30 points, Cohen Preby 17, Connor McFarland 14, Owen Soul 13 for the Evergreens, Jesse Napgezik 15, Charlie Cayley 11 for the Lumberjacks. Number 1, DC Everest is just a handful. Number 2, getting 4 kids in double figures, that's a good sign for Coach Oliver Drake.
Well, right. I think Everest is going to go with how teams, if they can check Hall and keep him, and give him only his points.
Only 30.
Yeah, but if you can keep, you let him go where he's got to go and not win the game single-handedly, the other guys are going to kind of dictate how far they go, how well they do, and things like that. So whenever they've got some extra contributors with Prebe, from the outside. Prebe. Is it Prebe? It looks like Prebe. I've seen it both ways, but we'll go Prebe. And then, Hall putting up his 30 a night. They're a tough handle. I watched some of that game, and East, with their stronger guard playing a couple bigs inside, Everest has that big man that they hang on the outside, and they can shoot, and they move the ball well. So, they're a handful, and they're looking to hold their own and keep atop that conference.
I think the team expected to be the biggest challenge will be Marshfield, and Marshfield off to a decent start in the conference, 71-47 victors over Wisconsin Rapids. It was a 5-point game at halftime. Marshfield pulled away in the second half. Brooks Hinson had 21 points. Owen Hansen, 15 for the Tigers. Cade Youngworth, 15. Caleb Lemieux, 12 for the Red Raiders. But for Marshfield, that's always a kind of a rival game, both in Wood County. They go over on the road against Wisconsin Rapids and get the first win of the season.
Yeah, in those rivalry games, you always, sometimes ability levels and skill sets and what people bring to the table when you think one team's going to be a definite winner and get thrown out the door because they've, those towns are close and these teams have grown up playing each other and they kind of know each other's personnel really well. So, Marshfield looking to, give Everest some losses and contend for the top of that title after the rebuild. And obviously handled Rapids in that second half quite easily. And then I don't know if you're going to go to the Kimberly game. And then, the next night you'll play it. Kimberly's always a solid opponent to play, a tough one off the east side of the state, and a competitive score, without knowing how it went down at the end.
It was a 3-point game at halftime.
Yeah, so respectable. So I think they're going to be a tough team with Hinson driving the way with average about 16 points a game.
Kimberly did beat Marshfield 71-57 on Saturday in the second half of the back-to-back for the Tigers. And the third conference game on Friday of last week, Merrill defeated Wausau West on the Warriors' home court 68-61. Troy Moots had a big second half. He had 25 points. Braden Pieper had 17. Brett Butala led the way for West with 25 points. Cole Nelson, 15. We talked about it last week. This, I thought, was a significant first game. Warriors led for much of the first half, but then Merrill came out in the second half, was, I thought, more physical, and also, I thought, used the zone defense very effectively. That kind of turned things around. Wausau West did not appear to be able to handle the zone very well, but for Merrill, a good road win to start off the conference.
And I think Merrill is going to be that team that they're going to demonstrate that physicality. And when they can control you physically, that's going to be a big a turning point in that game and make things happen. And it's a big win. I'm sure when we talk to Coach Pieper, he's going to talk about kind of creeping up into that, getting past the middle of that pack and hanging up at the top. And it's a good early win for them. And for West, a lot of times when we talk about them, their game can be managed the way they shoot the ball. And so if Merrill can go into his own, keep them on the outside, and they didn't shoot the ball that well, that's going to make it more of a struggle for them.
Great Northern Conference. Last Friday, there were 3 conference games, but as we talked about, the top teams in the league, I think, significantly ahead of everybody else, Mosinee, Northern Pines, and Medford, and they did not play each other. There were 3 games that involved those teams against, we call it the bottom half of the conference, and all 3 won easily. Mosinee knocked off Tomahawk 76-24. Davin Stoffel 18 points, 10 rebounds. Keegan Jershele 19 points, 8 boards. Garrett Shoup 13 points, 8 rebounds. Northern Pines behind 23 points from Griffin Stemke defeated Rhinelander 68-36, and Medford continues to roll up big point numbers. They beat Antigo by a score of 92-50. Logan Baumgartner 27, Tanner Raby 23, Ty Kohler 14, and Medford last night beat Merrill on the road 72-34 with Ty Metz scoring 19 and Tanner Raby 14. But again, it just appears right now Mosinee, Pines, and Medford, really good basketball teams, and it should be a really good battle at the top of the GNC.
Yeah, I think that's a different level when you talk the top of that conference. Pines is 6-1, Mosinee 6-0, Medford's 4-2, and some of the losses they had were some good non-conference opponents for Medford. But I think one of the commonalities that all those teams have is they have confidence to win. They've been there before. Even Pines, who maybe be lacking in that department, has that senior class that knows how to win, and they're balanced teams. If you look at those 3, they've got the scorer, they've got some guys that can play inside, they've got the guard control, and I think it'll be interesting to see when they start playing each other, because that's going to be where those losses are going to come. Medford continues to play well behind Baumgartner. Mosinee has Stoffel and Jershele, and Pines has all those seniors that are making, look to make, they're going to make a postseason run.
And they also do the job outside the league. I mentioned Medford 72-34 over Merrill, and Pines last night rolled Hurley 77-51. And what Pines does well is you say, balance. Griffin Stemke, 25 points. Gabe Smith, 16. Nolan Lurvey, 15 for the Eagles. So, again, it looks like the Great Northern Conference is going to be one to keep a close eye on. Merrillwood Conference South. And, again, it started last week with the crossovers with the Merrillwood Conference North. And Thursday, there was one crossover, and Athens knocked off Stratford. And that was, I think, a significant victory for the Athens Blue Jays and a significant loss for the Stratford Tigers. Aiden Yankee, 19 points, 11 boards. Connor Sheehan, 18 points for Athens. Ashton Wrench, 19. Braden Schuler, 14 for Stratford. But we talk about it, those crossover games, you're expected to win if you're in the South. And for Athens, it's a big win on the road. And for Stratford, it started a very difficult week.
Well, and Athens is looking to keep pace in the top of the northern half of the conference. So they're going for not only, the bragging rights, because like you mentioned, the South expects to win and has it over the years. And for Athens to do that on the road, it looks like it was one that was gutted out with that 5-point victory winning margin at the end of that game. And for Athens to continue to sit atop the Merrillwood North and get point production out of their main guys, I think that's going to help solidify a successful season. For Stratford, on the other hand, we know Coach Schmidt does a great job there and gets the most out of his players, but early on with so few conference games, they're finding themselves hanging in kind of an unfamiliar spot at the bottom of that conference, and I'm sure they'll find ways to push and work themselves out of it.
And then Friday night there were 5 crossover games between the Merrillwood South and the Merrillwood North, and the Merrillwood South won all 5 of the games. Marathon defeated Rib Lake 80-51. Grant Warren continues to put up double-doubles almost every night. He had 25 points and 15 rebounds. Tyler Underwood, 18 points. Cooper Huxama, 13 for Marathon. Jackson Blomberg had 17 for Rib Lake. Real quick start for Marathon. I think, going into the season, they had lost quite a bit due to graduation. They're they're top gunners basically, but they've come out and have been outstanding so far, haven't they?
All right, and they've they're undefeated in conference at 4-0, sitting atop of the Merriwood South, and they're 5-0 overall. And they always do that late start where they don't play till after Thanksgiving. And went out and dominated Rib Lake Friday night. Won a nice physical battle last night against Edgar, and it'll turn around and get tested against Stratford again. But we talked about the art of the big guy coming back a little bit, and in Grant Warren, that's that double that he's putting up is a big deal. It really makes that team go, and it looks like they've solidified the outside a little bit with all the their scorers last year were big time on the outside. They had some guys that could shoot the ball really well and control the tempo of the game. So a nice start for Marathon.
The other crossovers on Friday, there were 3 double-digit fairly easy wins, and then the game that went to double overtime. Newman Catholic defeated Abbotsford 77-37. Isaac Seidel 25, Mason Prey and Connor Kroc 12. Eli Gustafson had 15 rebounds in that game for the Cards. Auburndale defeated Phillips 62-36. Mason White Eagles 17 points. Alex Wilfart had 11 for Auburndale. And Edgar knocked off Prentice 56-43. Brett Baumgartner 15. Justin Davis and Leighton Chewett had 11 each for Edgar in that win. And then the best game of the night in terms of going right down to the wire and then some was Assumption beating Shawamigan in double overtime 70-64. Francis Matot had 22 points. Ryan Shaw 14 for the Royals. Isaiah Dietz had 24 points for the Shawamigan Screaming Eagles. But generally, in those crossovers, before we talk about last night's interconference games, those teams did the job in the Merriwood South.
All right, yeah. I was at the score kept for the Newman Abbey game, and that one was under control pretty quick, and those guys moved the ball and did what they didn't need to do to put points in the basket. As far as Assumption picking up a couple wins, they're currently sitting at 3-2 and 2-1 in the conference with some of those wins. And Shawamigan was expected to fight for the Merriwood North title up there. So I think, when you can go and get those tough, hard-fought victories, whether they're an OT or not, they're a big deal. And as you mentioned, Auburndale, a pretty easy win against Phillips. But what Auburndale has is a fairly balanced attack, and White Eagle and Wilfert and Weinfurter, those guys are always they're putting up about 10, 11, 12 points, give or take. So it's a couple extra weapons to get in those double digits to get that balanced scoring attack. And they're sitting at 5-1.
And last night was the games within the league, and those are so vitally important along with the crossovers. But when you get a chance on those crossover nights, sometimes you'll see everybody win or everybody lose for the Merriwood North. In this case, it was 5-1. Someone wins, someone loses when you actually play each other. And last night, as you touched on, Marathon defeated Edgar 50-40. It was a 2-point game at halftime. Marathon pulls away for the home court win. Grant Warren 17 points, Drew Love 12 for the Red Raiders. Also last night, Newman Catholic, without an injured Mason Prey, were able to roll past Assumption fairly easily, 61-44. Eli Gustafson, who I said had the 15 boards against Abbey, he put up 18 points as well to lead the way for Newman. Isaac Seidel had 14 points for the Cards. Auburndale beat Stratford 62-48. Alex Wilfart, 18. Blake Robb, 11. John Seitz and Ashton Wrench, 11 each for Stratford. Starting with Newman Assumption, to be without Mason Prey, obviously a huge loss for the Cards. But to see what Eli Gustafson is doing early in the season, and I think that going into the campaign, I thought that was probably maybe that wild card, that little bit of extra that we did not see last season on a consistent basis that could lift Newman further than they got a year ago. And we've seen him. I saw him play 3 games against the Turkey Shoot and also against Athens. He's become a real physical presence for this team, and then you add some points. I mean, that is a huge, huge lift for Newman, especially with Prey out.
Well, and he's going out and controlling the boards, and I think, and that's the big thing with any of these teams. Somebody goes down, somebody gets up. You're gonna have to step up and fill their spot when as needed, and it just gets more important as the season rolls on. So obviously, hoping Mason can get back quick and heal whatever it is that's hurting him, but they still got a lot of pieces of puzzle that can carry you through these games, and they handle the Assumption there. And Eli's got great size, something that's just what he is. So I think once he learns once he becomes consistent in using that all the time, that's going to be a big deal to put points up on the board. But Newman playing well with him and Seidel and Connor right now in Mason's absence.
And Auburndale's really bounced back nicely against after that tough loss to Marathon to start off the conference season. Not only have they been winning, but they've been winning by pretty good margins. And go into Stratford and knock off the Tigers like that last night, that's an impressive win.
When I saw that score, I thought that was one of the more significant ones we looked at, because those two teams go at each other. They are always hanging up at the top of the conference and kind of know where they stand. And Auburndale's one of those types of teams. They're just balanced and good on both sides, offensively and defensively. So I don't, you can't say Marathon slipped by them, because Marathon is a weapon in and of itself. But they're not gonna take that one lightly, and those guys are gonna look to improve. And I think he's got good kids that are gonna work hard for him. So I think that's a nice significant win. At Stratford too, to go over there and take that 162-48.
And you mentioned the Marathon Edgar game, and that's always a tough game. A 50-40 game last night. Obviously, it was one of those battles, and for Marathon to find a way again to beat Edgar. But it shows again, Edgar had that kind of odd score that we talked about last week, where they got blown away in a non-conference game.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the win against Prentice late last week, and then playing tougher against Marathon, they're still going to be a factor in this league.
Oh yeah, and I think they were young last year. I'm sure learned a lot as sophomores, and now that junior class is kind of where a lot of their scoring punch and what they do out on the floor in Baumgartner and Street. Those guys put up the points, and this again is basically the crosstown rivalry. These towns are really close, and these teams both go at each other, and you wouldn't expect it to be more than 10 with a couple free throws at the end. So I think it's a hard-fought victory for Marathon to keep that record unblemished, but Edgar's not a team that anybody's going to be able to take lightly. They're going to play you physical, and they're going to work you, and they've got that mentality on the court that they're not going to want to lose.
CWC North, Wisconsin Valley Lutheran, earns their first victory of the season. They have not played much. They're 1-3 overall, 1-1 in their conference. They edged Gresham 41-40. Andrew Boleen had 21 points. Kiel Zuhlsdorf 13 for WVL. And also a CWC East result. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood lost to Bonduel 68-54. Mason Meverden had 21 points and 8 rebounds for the Chargers. But for WVL, you get a 1-point win and you take it.
Especially with their schedule is so it's difficult to read, because their games are all over the place. They don't play a lot early, it seems, when most teams are just edging to get out on that court to beat each other up. And in a 1-point victory over at Gresham, who's been that conference leader for many years there on and off, I would take that. So they're sitting at 1-3, 1-1 overall, and going at Tri-County again, not till December 19th though. Here's one of those other extra breaks here.
There's something really odd with some of these schedules.
Where they're off again. In Wittenberg, we talked about the physicality they have in their play, but a tougher draw with Bonduel, who's going to be one of those top teams up in the conference. But you look at some of their averages with some of their players. They got guys 19 and 13 and putting up some points. So that hopefully will help them out as they continue into their conference schedule.
We'll talk about what's happening in the next week in the boys basketball realm later in the program. And we'll look at what's happened in girls basketball in about 20 minutes or so. But coming up next, we'll have our first guest for this evening, the head boys basketball coach of Merrill High School. We'll talk to Troy Pieper. That's coming up next. And again, coming up at 7 o'clock will be our student athlete guest for this week, when we are joined by the goaltender for the East-Merrill United Bluejacks, Jake Furr. This is the big high school sports show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and time for our first guest for this evening from the Merrill High School Blue Jays, members of the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Very happy to welcome back to the program the head coach of the Blue Jays, Troy Pieper. And Coach, first of all, thank you again for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're a team that actually has not played as much as many of the teams around the area. You had a postponement against Lakeland already, 4 games under your belt, 1 game in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. I imagine that getting, even though it was a tough game last night, starting to find a little rhythm is probably important for your team in terms of getting some real game action.
Yeah, a tough game last night. That's one way to put it. Yeah, we're still trying to find our way, find our rotation, find out minutes, what groups work well together, stuff like that. I liked how we played defense against La Crescent last Saturday, and I liked how our zone worked against West. But last night, not a lot went right offensively or defensively, and when you struggle to take care of the ball and don't really have the effort on defense that we need to have consistently and don't match the other team's energy against a team like Medford, you're gonna have a night like we had last night. And all you can really do is, learn from it and move on, and hopefully we get a practice before we see East on Friday.
And Coach, I'm getting older, so I'm having a hard time remembering things from my days coaching. But I remember some of those times it was so, after the team lost or didn't play the way you wanted to, you were like you said, you're so hungry to get back into that practice, and you want to get there and just start working on things that you think can make your team the best. So early on in the season, what do you think are things that you really like? You like about this team so far from what you've seen in some of the games and practices you've had with them, and then something that you think is your biggest point that you want to emphasize that we got to work on to find the success to get around to the top of the conference and things like that.
Well, our depth and our balance. I mean, we can have some pretty competitive practices. I like the depth 1 through 13. I think we have healthy right now. We can have good competitive hard practices. I would say the only thing is just consistently having that energy and effort and the execution at a high level, not just in games but in practices, so it translates to games. I think that's the one thing we're still kind of learning, but we also only have really 4 guys returning with any significant varsity minutes, so they're learning what that looks like in practice and then how to translate that to games and catch up the speed of a varsity speed game. So all those things come together. I think we'll be fine. I mean, it's always hard. I mean, when you get, like, we haven't been humbly beaten like that in a long time, and it snowballed quick. I think we were down 41, 16 at halftime. So at that point, you're just trying to find something and more pride kind of stuff and just come out and play with energy, and just that kind of thing is what you're looking for in the second half of a game like that. And it just wasn't there. You're going to have nights like that. And when you have bad nights kind of all around, you hope they're not against a team like Medford, which is really, really talented. Might be the best team in the area at D2, in my opinion. I guess the one good thing is they got bumped out to the other regional, so we won't have to worry about them come playoffs, at least for a while in playoffs. So we can deal with that at another time. But yeah, they're good. Their intensity on defense, Medford, is really second to none. It always has been. Coach Brown has them, like, they fully 100% buy into the defensive end, and it's all 5 guys that are on the floor. It doesn't matter what 5 guys they are. I thought a perfect example in what makes that team so good is, they scored 72 last night against us, and we held Baumgartner to 7. Mm-hmm. like if somebody would have told me that prior to the game that he would only have 7 points, I'd be like, oh, we're in this. We might have won, and we didn't, not by a long shot. That just shows you, one, the maturity of Logan to he didn't even force anything. He just took what was his all night, and he didn't take many shots. It wasn't like he had a bad night. We just, obviously everyone's attention is going to be on him a lot, and others just stepped up for him offensively, and defensively they just created easy baskets for themselves. We turned it over way too many times, and live ball turnovers up towards the top of the key and stuff, which, I mean, that's what they live by, and they executed much better. I think Coach Brown was kind of looking for one of those games where the defense really clicked for 36 minutes, and it just happened to be against us, and the end result was rough. But there's not, I mean, really, you can't, I know we're not, we're better than what we played. Medford's good, and it is what it is. All you can do is, this early in the season, if you let that bother you too much, it kind of defines your season the rest of the way. It's more now, how do you respond? You get a couple days. We don't get to practice tonight because of the weather. Who knows what tomorrow will bring as far as practice? There's a very good possibility we might have to come in Friday morning, have a short practice to get ready for East, and then it's just about your pride and how you bounce back after a humbling defeat. And I think we have the guys and the character in the locker room that will be challenged by it and will accept it. And I think they'll be ready to release some frustrations come Friday, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. I mean, Bosnia handed it to us pretty good the first game of the year, and we responded nicely after that, winning 2 in a row. So we'll see. I mean, that's all you can do is pick yourself up and keep going, and you hope you bounce back.
Again, we're talking to Merrill High School boys basketball coach Troy Pieper here on the Big High School Sports Show. Let's talk about something more positive. Saw your team against Wausau West last Friday night in the Wisconsin Valley Conference opener. Anytime you can go on the road and earn a conference win, especially to start off the campaign, is a big positive. It was a game where you trailed for much of the first half, and then a big run at the start of the second half helped turn it around and earn the W. A couple of things that kind of jumped out watching that game in the second half. Troy Moots looked like decided he was going to get to the basket and he was going to use his physicality. And you kind of touched on it earlier. You went to a zone defense in the second half that really, I thought, was very effective as well. Were those two of the big factors in the second half coming from behind to earn that win on the road?
Yeah, at halftime, I mean, the last possession of the first half, we went into a 2-3 just solely so they wouldn't be comfortable with their last shot of the half, and they didn't even get a shot off. So walking to halftime, I was talking to my assistant coach. I'm like, should we come out in a 2-3? Like, they didn't even get a shot off to end the half. Maybe they haven't worked a lot on zone offense or whatever, but just to mix it up. And so we did, and it worked. I mean, they didn't hit shots that I would assume that they hoped they would make. And our energy, I think we got a lot of tips. We played it like we practiced it for the most part, and we did a good job with it. Offensively, I think really what the key to start it was, Braden got hot from the outside to start the half. He hit 3 in a row to start the half, and Lemons kind of got on the guy that was guarding him, and Moots can get to the basket one-on-one. It's when people help out that can clog things up for him, and when he would drive on Braden's side of the basket, and Braden's guy wasn't helping on defense at all, it was Troy could just have a field day, and that's kind of what he did from that point on. And those two fed off each other real well, and we kind of got offense going a little bit. And yeah, our defense did a much better job in the second half. It was a good win. It was a hard fought win because we also hurt ourselves a lot. As much as our defense was good in the half court, it seemed like every time we would run the lead out to about 10-12, we would the turnover bug would hit us, and we'd have 2 or 3 turnovers, and West would get a few runouts to get back in the game, because they struggled in the half court against our zone, and I thought if we could just take care of the ball, we could have extended the lead even more, but we had to make it a little interesting for everybody, I guess.
And Coach, you look, every coach, when you ask them this question, they play in the best conference, they got the best team. It's just what it is. You defend your conference and you take personal pride, and that's just a great place to be for the year where a bulk of your schedule comes from. I know it's early in the year yet, and the Wisconsin Valley, you guys play a lot of non-conference games leading into those first ones, but like you said, sitting at a hard-fought victory, sitting at 1-0 right now is a good spot to be in. What do you think of the conference and what you see out of these teams and who's looking to hang at the top, maybe who's in the middle, and what you expect to see out of the Wisconsin Valley Conference, a little bit out of some of the opponents you're going to face?
I think at the top, it's probably pretty consensus that it's Everest and Marshfield, whichever one you want to name first right now. They probably seem to be the most likely one too. Hall is the best player in the area, if not the best one of the best players in the state. I mean, he's almost unguardable. From what I've seen a little bit, we don't play them for a while, but you always peek at your conference teams and check out film whenever you kind of have time. They seem to be playing a little bit more defense than they have in the past, which is even more daunting, I guess, facing them. Marshfield is just Marshfield. It's just that train just keeps rolling. They play defense. They're patient on offense. They pass up good shots for great shots. They take care of the ball. They are what they are, and it's really good, and it's working for them. But from basically 3 on, I really truly believe that it's probably as competitive as it's been in a really long time. Anybody can kind of beat anybody, and not that nobody can beat Marshfield or Everest. I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot of drop-off. You know, everyone has their, I guess you could say, maybe flaws or question marks that they're still working on, but they all have strengths. This summer playing Rapids, they're shooting, like, every guy on their team seemed like they could shoot. So, you know, they're much improved. East is a little young, but their guards are aggressive in the way Dan likes to play defense and pick up and get after it. That's going to fit his system better. And the more games they get, the more comfortable they'll get. You know, West is still trying to figure it out a little bit, but I think once they do, Lemons and Kip and them, they usually get things kind of figured out come after Christmas. I think when we played them, if I'm not mistaken, they said it was their 5th different starting lineup in 5 games. It's tough to find any rhythm or groove when you're still trying to figure out your 5. But everybody, you know, it's going to be competitive. Spash is right there like they always are. Like it's a tough conference. There's no game, and not knocking any other conferences, but there's not a single game where you're like, there's 2 wins because we get to play them twice. You know, it's every night it's going to be a dogfight.
Again, we're talking to Troy Pieper, the head boys basketball coach at Merrill High School here on the Big High School Sports Show. Talk a little bit more about your guys. Had I think 3 pretty consistent scores here to start things off with Troy Moots, Braden Pieper, and Tyson Glish. Could you maybe talk a little bit about those 3 and what you need from them in terms of, as you said, a part of the group that has some experience?
Yeah, I mean, those 3, Tyson came got some pretty significant varsity minutes the second half of the season last year, and down the stretch was kind of a key guy for us in the Mosinee game and in playoffs and stuff. And Braden and Troy were honorable mention last year. I think all 3 of them, their game has evolved over the summer coming into their senior year and stuff. I think they're a little bit more patient. They're trusting the game and the flow of the game, not really rushing or forcing stuff, taking what's given to them. And I think it's been good for everybody else, too. I mean, we've had last night we didn't have it. We had 2 guys in double figures, but the 3 games prior to that, we had 3 guys in double figures, and all 3 games, it was a different combination of 3 guys. That's the balance and depth that I'm talking about this season, and it's tough to prepare and scout for a team. Last night, Braden and Troy combined for 3 points, and we still had 2 other guys step up and finish in double figures. And I'm just, like, being bluntly honest, if Braden and Troy combined for 3 points, I don't know if there's anybody I don't know any game we'll win, probably. It was just one of those nights. They're great defense, and they really focused on those 2 and did a good job taking them away. But Tyson can shoot it. He's physical and strong inside. He's both inside, outside. He's a tough matchup for anybody. Carter Body, he's a junior whose role has expanded greatly this year, and he's still only 4 games in, kind of learning it. Last night, you kind of seen a more comfortable, confident, like what I know of him, and he showed that last night. Croy Waller's a 6'3" guy that can shoot it, can score inside. E.J. Wykes is a sophomore coming off the bench, and Corey Page is another sophomore coming off the bench. They're both skilled players, but still learning varsity speed. Corey was a JV2 player that jumped to varsity not because he all of a sudden became a good player, but just his size and physicality kind of grew a little bit, and now he fits into a varsity role. and EJ was a JV player last year, so it's a big adjustment for those two. Each game you see that confidence and that comfort kind of come for them, and I think that's the key to us is everybody just buying in and trusting that, passing up kind of that Marshfield mentality, passing up good shots for great shots, and at some point you'll be on the other end of that extra pass, and you'll still get yours. And yeah, our depth we won't have. It's not like last year where we relied on Bailey to get 20, 25 a game. We don't need that now. We just need to trust and buy in and share it. And we should have 3 or 4 guys every night in double figures. Last night was tough. We only scored 30-some points, but we still got 2 guys in double figures. But that's us. I mean, we it's more our defense that needs to just step it up a level. I think offensively, I'm not that concerned, even though if you look at the score last night, I mean, it is what it is. But offensively, I know we'll be fine. It's just that night in, night out, 36 minutes of the 3 E's I preach: energy, effort, and execution on defense. And when we bring that, we're a really good team. It's just a matter of finding that consistency for a whole game.
And Coach, with this choppiness that you said, just due to the weather and bouncing back after the Medford game, one of my questions was going to be what you'd like to see out of your team on Friday. Obviously, you want to see that defensive effort, which you just mentioned. But what can you expect from Wausau East when they walk into your gym on Friday?
Well, East is going to be ready to go. We had a couple. I mean, we had 2 really good games with them last year, high scoring. I'd say neither team played well on defense. But both teams played really well on offense. It could be credit to the defense that we both played. But they'll be ready to go. I don't know. Did they play last night? I don't even think they played last night. Did they?
I'm looking right now. They did not. I think they haven't played since the Everest game last Friday.
Yeah, so they're going to be ready. I think for them, a bye is probably not a bad thing. Having a full week now gets cut up for them, I'm sure too. But just having that extra time for those to find their young guys. Napgezik is the young Napgezik's starting to show himself already. He's looking like a more and more confident player every time. And then you got Worth, and you got I call him Roz because I can't say his last name, but yeah.
Related to Jeff Gress, by the way.
Yeah. He flies around, and he's just constant energy. They're going to bring it defensively with their energy. So we have to just match it, and then try to create a little bit of chaos on our own on the defensive end, and see what happens. It'll be a good game. It's our second year of having our Merrill Basketball Hall of Fame, so it's our Hall of Fame night. So it should be a pretty packed house, I would imagine. It'll be a cool atmosphere, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I hope, even if we don't have school, that the roads or something can be cleared where we can maybe have practice tomorrow evening. I don't know. Otherwise, I mean, we'll figure that out. It is what it is. It's the same problem for everybody right now. And I don't know. Maybe for the guys' sake, tonight probably wasn't a bad night to have off because it just probably was a good night to take a break.
Self-reflection.
But hopefully we can get back at it tomorrow.
And I guess the final question is, last year you guys really had a nice run at the end. You finished off your conference well with a couple of wins against East and West, had a couple of playoff wins. You went to Mosinee against a really good basketball team, won it, had a chance to win the next night against Rhinelander. Is that something, even though it's a different group, these guys saw it, they were around it, that you can build on in terms of where you want to take this program? Was that a significant accomplishment late last season to be able to do what you did against some really good competition?
Yeah, anytime you can make a little bit of noise in the playoffs, it creates excitement not just in the program but in the community, which is a good thing. It makes people want to be part of the basketball program. They get kind of excited for the summer stuff. Our numbers were great this summer, and the people showing up and the effort they put in all summer was great. So you get that kind of that effect of numbers might go up in this. Now it's a new season. How do we repeat that or go beyond that? And it's kind of a new group. You can't compare really because it's a new group of guys. Everything's new for the opponents you're playing and everything. But it is anytime you make noise in the playoffs, and the one thing I will reflect on, even last night, we had a couple bad losses last year where we got beat pretty good. And I can say to the guys, like, hey, if we just stay the course, we'll get there. You can get there. You just got to trust the process, stay the course. You can't let a bad loss define you. It's more about how you bounce back from a bad loss that is more of the defining, I guess. So we'll see. I just want to play. I wish we could actually play tonight. Like, it's so hard to sit. Today, I beat my 10-year-old daughter in cranium a second ago. That made me happy. So it's been hard to find those silver linings, those smiles right now, but I put her in her place. I got lucky. I landed on a star, which I guess gave me double the roll or something, but I got the win. So it's those little things on the snow days that make you happy. She's giving me a look right now like, how dare you?
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Good luck against Coach Garrett and the Lumberjacks on Friday. I'd probably be a little more fulfilling to knock off Coach Garrett than your daughter, right?
Yeah, I mean, any win's a good win. So you take it anytime you can get it, even if it's in the game of cranium.
There you go. Well, Coach, again, thank you for your time. Always appreciate it, and best of luck as you continue throughout the season.
All right, thanks for having me.
That is the head coach of the Merrill Blue Jays, Troy Pieper. We're going to take a break. We're going to turn our attention to the girls' side, and then, of course, at 7 o'clock, Jake Furr from the East-Merrill United Bluejacks will be our student-athlete guest for this week. He's Jeff Gress. I'm Chad Holmes. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. Again, also, if you miss our program, it will be posted on our website, bullfallsradio.com. Click on the sports link and then click on Big High School Sports Show to hear this and previous broadcasts of the program. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks again to Troy Pieper, the Merrill head coach, for joining us. We'll be joined by East-Merrill United goaltender Jake Furr coming up at 7 o'clock. But right now, time to jump into the girls' high school basketball. And starting with the Wisconsin Valley Conference, some conference activity last Friday night. And Wausau West beat Merrill up in Merrill, 56-43. Lexi White, 18.7 boards. Molly Anderson, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Ayla Christensen, 11 points for a balanced Wausau West attack. Number one for Wausau West, obviously, just good to get the W. That's what they want right now. They are trying to win a conference championship like they've done the last 2 years. But for Merrill, I thought it was a very competitive performance for the Blue Jays. And Merrill then backed it up with a 67-40 win over Northern Pines last night. And real quickly last night as well, Wausau West in a non-conference game also earned back-to-back wins, beating Appleton Xavier 57-47. And Molly Anderson, again, a double-double, back-to-back double-doubles, 13 points, 12 rebounds. Christensen at 13, White 12 and 7. So I think for both Wausau West and for Merrill, good couple of games.
Well, yeah, with West, they just, like you said, they want to win that conference. So they're trying to just keep that record unblemished. So they started off with the W against the team. I guess if you look on paper, they should beat. West has the personnel to get that job done, and they got the point production and the double doubles out of a couple of those players, and to turn around and get another. Non-conference win is good. They're sitting at 4-3, but they've had a good non-conference schedule on before they started in the Wisconsin Valley. For Merrill, I think just being competitive in that game is a big deal. It's not the same type of lineup that West has, and so for Merrill to play them well, to play them competitively throughout that game, I think it's not a W in the win category, but it's a good mental builder. I think
a building block.
Yeah, and then they turned around and beat Pines, who I think they should have based on Pines' record. But again, a nice win. Ott's putting up quite a few points for Coach DeBoer, and they turn around and another conference game right away on Friday.
The team, I think, Well, there's two teams, I think, that are the biggest competition at this point for West. I think Stevens Point, who the Warriors will face on Friday, and Marshfield. And Marshfield, 61-30, knocking off Wisconsin Rapids. Daniel Mintzas, 16. Zaida Kolbeck had 11. And Marshfield's been playing really solid basketball. And right now, I think Marshfield, are they still undefeated? 6-0 overall, 2-0 in the conference, and rolled Wisconsin Rapids. That Marshfield team, it looks like it's the real deal.
Right. And, Rapids is not the same type of team they were last year, so expecting them to beat them up as they did with 31 points plus in the scoreboard category. And then I think, they're going to be a team that's going to look to push West and try to either tie or take that conference title. And they'll Minsot's getting 18 and some other girls putting in some points. It's 6-0 mark right now if the season's good.
DC Everest got their first win of the season Friday, knocking off Wausau East 55-33. Braylon Byler, 19 points. Grace Sandquist, 11 points, 17 rebounds. And then Everest ran into the Wilmette train last night in a non-conference game. Lakeland came to Everest, knocked off the Greens, 73-33. Byler, another double-digit night, 13 points. Number one, a much-needed win for the Evergreens. Number two, Byler's been consistently. It's hard when you don't have a lot of other kids that have been putting up pretty big offensive numbers. Byler's been pretty consistent for DCE.
Yeah, she's done a good job. That 16-point average is consistent. It's kind of a double-edged thing because you know where your offensive production is coming from, so you're going to gear offensive strategies around that and then try to get the other players in the flow of that game. But as a coach that's going to play defense on that, you know where you kind of got to keep them in check, which, at that point when they've started off a 1-8, you want to get that W, and you need that. And then turn around after the win, and Lakeland's your next opponent is a tough one.
Going to the GNC, talking about Lakeland, they have now won 6 games in a row. They beat Mosinee last Thursday, 80-46. They knocked off Ladysmith, 71-37 Friday, and Everest last night, 73-33. Thursday, Juliana Wilmette had 32, Christina Wilmette 20. Juliana had 21 against Ladysmith, and Christina 15. And then last night, you talk about huge numbers. 31 points for Juliana Wilmette, 26 for Christina. It looks like after facing some pretty good competition, Lakeland is really in a good rhythm right now because they are not just winning, they're winning by big margins.
Right. Again, kind of played it like they did last year where they just kept coming alive. They started off 0-3 and now they've won 6 in a row to be 6-3. And like you said, the scoreboard is heavily favored on their side in these games that they've won the last couple times. The two-headed monster and the Wilmette sisters just continues to run the gamut. And we usually talk about teams, that are going to challenge for that conference lead. They're going to have a hard. If they take a loss, it's going to be because something significant. Players injured, players sick, somebody's out because they look ready to roll and they're going to win against Antigua on Friday.
And Mosinee did bounce back on Friday, defeating Tomahawk 65-20. Taylor Jershely had 19. Caitlin Sell had 13. So for Mosinee, they got through the Lakeland game, and now you hate to see it in December, but boy, it looks like a battle for second in that conference.
Right, and Mosinee, Rhinelander are going to kind of go behind the girls that are stepping up early in their season and getting the W's, but I think it's not to knock any teams, but it's a distant second. Lakeland is
just that good.
Yeah, they're that good, and Rhinelander and Mosinee, they'll battle and they'll beat the other teams in the conference, and somebody will duke it out for second.
Merriwood South, they're again some crossover games Thursday and Friday. Newman, a 10-1 run to end the game. I got past Abbotsford last Thursday, 34-32. Lily Shields had 11. Sydney Galang and Mallory Rosbadowski, 7 for the Cards. The other crossovers that were played Friday, Phillips beat Auburndale. Another loss for Auburndale in a crossover, the second time already this year. Phillips edged Auburndale 57-55. Kendall Week 15. Casey Egebrecht 14. Gracie Krings 20 for the Eagles. Athens beat Stratford. Another win for the North, 58-36. Addison Levica, 21 points. Giselle Hartwig, 18 for the Blue Jays. Lauren Krause, 16 for the Tigers. Marathon beat Rib Lake, 63-36. Assumption all over Shawamigan, 72-8. And And even last night, Newman got another non-conference win, 42-26 over Spencer. Stratford beat Loyal 34-22. But the North, again, last season we talked about it, where the North was, I think, more competitive against the South, and right now it looks the same. But I guess number one, good couple of wins for Newman, who've been battling some injuries. And also Auburndale losing twice in crossovers. Interesting.
Yeah, and those were the 2 points I was going to, Newman's sitting at a 5-4 mark overall, still looking to get some of those conference wins built up. But the Abbotsford win, Abbotsford was sitting at the top of the conference. It knocked off Auburndale, and to bounce back, that's when Auburndale's expected to be one of the top teams in the South. That's a good win for Newman to finish that out 34-32. And they're trying to balance things because they got some freshmen that they're still a young team yet, and then some of the older kids that really contribute some points and in the scoring categories has been up and down with injuries. So I think what they're doing is a good job, and you're continuing to see the improvement out of that program. For Auburndale, I think it's a tough one. You go out and you lose to Phillips, and now on Thursday they're going to have to roll against Assumption. They've got a little bit of an uphill battle because they've taken some losses to that northern half of the conference. Still, I think have some good production with Aui and Grimm and Kriggs, but so they're not going to be anybody that's going to be overlooked. They're not going to roll over. And then Athens, 8-0 right now, 5-0 in the conference. I mean, that's a pretty good basketball team there with those girls that are carrying forth the damage they did on the volleyball court. Now it's coming on the basketball court.
Yeah, Athens last night beat Colby 77-58. Sophia Coker, just a monster night, 26 points and 17 boards. Giselle Hartwig had 20, and Phillips is 6-1 overall and 4-1 in the league. They beat Hurley 87-37, and one of the games that we'll mention later will be Phillips at Athens coming up later in the week. And real quickly here before our break, Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. They had a big win last Friday over Bondwell, 55-49. The freshman Rory Salveson, 22, Reese Rogowski, 20. And then last night, Whitburn had a chance to kind of establish themselves as the team to beat in the CWC East, but they blew a 31-21 halftime lead, fell at Iola Scandinavia 54-50. Just one double-digit scorer, Reese Rogowski with 27. So right now in the CWC East, there's not an undefeated team in the conference after 3 games, which is amazing.
And that's a 4-way tie at the front because everybody...
5-way, actually.
Is there 5? either way, 4 or... I mean, you're right on
it's
5,
crazy.
I'm sure, but that's a lot of teams to have up at the top because they're beating each other up a little bit. And Wittenberg stubbed their toe a little bit because you got the one you needed to on Friday night at Bondwell, 6-point game, so it was a tight one. And then you turn around, and I would assume they should have beat Iola. And I don't know the circumstances of that game, but just one you don't want to stub your toe on early on because that's their mark. They were 7-1 and 2-1 overall.
We got to take a break, but coming up, we will talk to our student-athlete guest for this week from the East-Merrill United Bluejacks, Jake Furr, coming up. He's Jeff Gress. I'm Chad Holmes. Again, it is a Wednesday, each Wednesday night from 6 till 8, the big high school sports show. Glad you could join us here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. It is the second hour, and it means it's time for our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau East High School, member of the Wausau East-Merrill Co-op Bluejack hockey team. We're very happy to welcome their senior goaltender, Jake Furr. And Jake, first of all, I got to apologize. We had a little miscommunication last week, but really glad we could reschedule and have you in here tonight. Thanks for coming in on a slick night.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
I think it's a good night to have a hockey player on with all the ice out there. But, Jake, one of the things that we like to talk about with the student athletes is the opportunities that you get. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of anybody that had more opportunity in your sport than you because you faced so many shots. I was doing some research, and if I'm not mistaken, you have faced 2,673 shots in your high school career because you played all 4 years. I mean, you were a freshman goaltender. Just to put that into perspective, I've been trying to find out, what the record is. I can't find it, but I covered for the previous 4 years Adam Prokop over at West, and he also played 4 years, and he already completed 4 years, and you still have much of your senior season to go, and he only faced 1,800 plus shots in his career, and you've already got 800 more. I imagine that it's a difficult position, but at the same time, as a competitor, there must be an incredible challenge to facing all the rubber that you faced over the 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been up and down throughout the years, and it's definitely helped me with my game and really helped me with my attitude with my team, and just overall helped me and my team just compete with these top teams throughout the state. And yeah, it's been a crazy 4 years, but I've enjoyed it. It's a lot of shots and a lot of learning. So yeah.
So I didn't preface this, by the way, that I just kind of take basketball and function into hockey, so I don't know a lot. So whatever, you try to make me sound smart when you give an answer. But I would imagine that it's almost a double-edged sword too, because there's the pressure that you got to control the net, because that's where your strength is coming from, is that goaltender is going to keep the games in check.
Yep.
At the same time, as much as fun as is having that action, you're not sitting there just kind of kicking the ice around in front of you. Do you feel a lot of pressure at that position, that what you do on a given night, based on all the shots you can stop and all the shots you're going to face, it's going to help control the game, and that I've always got to be ready to go all the time?
Yeah, so I mean, it can be stressful sometimes, especially facing top teams where I'm seeing 60 or more shots, and I got a bigger crowd and student section sometimes. I mean, it can be a lot of stress sometimes, and you just got to get through it, and it's part of the game, so.
I was looking at your numbers for this year, and I know it's early. We've only got a handful of games in the season, but both your save percentage and your goals against average is by far the best it's been in your career. If you take a look at yourself as a freshman and a sophomore in terms of what you were doing between the pipes and now what you're doing this year, where are the areas that you've got better at? What is helping you in terms of stopping a higher percentage of shots and also really lowering significantly your goals against?
Yeah, I would say mentality is a huge thing. Getting down on myself earlier in my high school years really brought my game down and my save percentage. And as I got through the year, my junior and senior year, I just, mentally you got to be on your game, and, it's such a huge part in finding success is your mentality and not getting down on yourself and just getting up after a goal comes in, just getting right back to it. So that's mentality. It's been huge helping me get through, the past 4 years.
Well, along that same line, I've seen you play in a number of games over these years, and I think people can underestimate when you do have the constant pressure. I mean, where your opponent has been in the offensive zone and pelting you with pucks. Was there a point where sometimes that weight did cause you, because where just the mental sharpness goes away for a moment because you had no time to breathe at times? Was that something you had to kind of learn, where you could not turn off your mind even for a few seconds?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it can be a struggle. It's just sometimes it's just shot after shot after shot. It can really get on your head, and the last thing you want is just the other team to get in your head and to just ignore the scoreboard and just keep making saves. So
how's it playing on a team that has the co-op within it? Because that's different. Sometimes you see all the guys at the high school level and they're all in the same building and you're just walking together wherever. Is there a different bonding such that's come about, or is it pretty much still just run itself?
I mean, ever since the co-op started, EMU's definitely struggled being one team. And lately, the past couple of years, Nate Poggle, our coach, has come and he's done a phenomenal job making this team a family and playing together and being to, play with these top teams and find success. So, yeah, I mean, the team right now has definitely gotten better and played as a family. So
2-4 so far this season, going into a back-to-back coming up Thursday and Friday. Where has this team improved? Because it looks as though you do have some experience back. You had to play with a lot of very young players a year ago, basically thrown into the deep end of the pool where kind of sink or swim. Having that experience, I imagine, is making for a better start for this season.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in years before, I mean, we've just... the team has struggled coming together, and you look at scores from Spash last year. I mean, prior years it's been in double digits easily, in the first couple periods, and last game we had, I mean, I had quite a few shots. I think it was like 83 or something like that, and it was 6-0. So, I mean, I do see improvement in practice and sometimes in the games, but, step by step. You can't just go out there and, beat West or Spash, and, you got to take little steps, and we're going in the right direction right now, I think so.
The game against Everest Saturday, a 2-0 game. They had a chance, right? Basically, right down to the end.
Yeah.
People look, number one, at the wins and losses, but it is a process, isn't it? It really is. And I think as someone who's been there for 4 years and playing for 4 years, you probably see it as well as anybody.
Yep.
How much of an improvement has there been between your freshman year and your senior year for the program? Do you feel like this program is I think what Jeff has said as well with the co-op, I think it's more difficult because of the separate facilities. I think sometimes it's a Band-Aid early on because of the numbers issues, and then you start looking at some of the issues like trying to get everybody to the practice. Some nights I imagine you have to go up to Smith Center, and other nights you go to Marathon Park. Are the steps in the right direction something that you as a senior feel like, hey, there is a potential for us to become a competitive team in the Wisconsin Valley Conference against I would say some bigger schools and more traditional hockey schools?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, from freshman year, I mean, definitely coaching and the team has just, we've come together and, go through plays together and practice, and just crisp passes and everything has just come together. And this team is really starting to understand the basics to be able to compete with the top teams. And, it is a struggle sometimes, going up to Merrill and back and the co-op and all that stuff. And we just get through it and, it finds success in the end. So
how about yourself as like a leader? I got to Matt, you step. Everybody's goal is always to play varsity sports as soon as you can. Sometimes you're thrust in there, sometimes you're in the spot, sometimes you just get what you get out of it. And jumping from middle school hockey to, or whatever you want to label it as, to high school hockey, that's a big jump. And then you're finding your way. How about as a leadership spot? How is your I'm assuming it's just gained by leaps and bounds to now, it seems like you've been there like 12 years. I know it's only seems like every time we're talking hockey, your name's being mentioned because you've been in that goal for so long. How is have you grown as a leader in your time in the net from freshman to senior year?
Yeah, I mean, my coach has talked to me. Everyone's watching me when I'm out there, and if I'm get scored on and I'm banging my stick, saying swear words and all that, my team's watching me and the fans are watching me, and that's, especially with the younger team, these kids are looking up to me, and I want to show them, who the best goalie can be, and I've really gone far with my mentality, like I said before, and keeping my composure throughout the game. When sometimes games go bad, and you just got to keep that composure and move on. So,
again, we're talking to East-Merrill United goaltender Jake Furr here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Something that I'd like to ask hockey players is, when was the first time that you put on the skates? When did you first start playing hockey? Because so often it's very young.
Oh, yeah. I think I was about 3 years old. I remember I'd always go to the free skates with my dad, and, he'd put on my skate. I remember just getting my skates on, and then I'd hold on to a little chair, and then he'd just take step by step, and then gradually got up, and then I just started playing goalie, and I fell in love with it, and ever since then. So
along the same lines, I like to ask goaltenders, were you always a goaltender, or did you play other positions?
I started goalie when I was pretty young too. I was probably about 4. I used to watch East games all the time, and I just always watched the goalies, and I just fell in love with it. So, yeah, it's always just been a favorite position of mine. I've just always loved it. I don't know. So,
and I like to toss it out there because, unfortunately, the days and moments count down, and the career for high school can come to an end. Is there? What do you think? For doing this again, I think you're in a unique spot because you've done this for so long in the one spot. And what are you going to miss most about high school hockey when it's all said and done?
I would say the adrenaline. I mean, some games can get pretty crazy. Playing against bigger teams and seeing, as many shots. I like seeing all the shots I get to see. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but I love all the adrenaline I get, and just the games themselves just make me happy. And I love to play after high school. I mean, there's always hockey to play, but we'll see where I go. So
you mentioned the shots. I think in the first game of the year when you beat Chewampik, I think you only saw like 13 shots.
Yeah.
Is it odd for you, who's used to seeing 50-plus shots a night,
Yeah.
where you only get 13, and it make it more difficult? Because
Yeah, it's just some of those games, we play easier teams. I mean, you got to stay loose on the other end of the ice. And, sometimes it can be a little unusual. But, staying loose, sticking with the team and finding success pretty much. So
Who do you think's been the most difficult opponent you faced over the years? And is there who's a team you're looking forward to playing this year yet, whether you've played them once already or not?
Most difficult team, I'd say Spash. And then I'm looking forward. I think we play Everest again. So I'm looking forward to playing them again, sticking with them. So,
and is there a favorite? Is there a location based? I mean, net's a net, correct? And you got the same distance when you're sitting in there. But is there a place that you like to play the most at because you get a better feel, or you have a feel? I mean, whether it could be at home or it could be on the road somewhere.
Yeah, I would say Marshfield. Their student section definitely hates the goalies sometimes, but I don't let it get in my head. I like it when they're chirping me, and then I make a big save, and so
that's interesting because I have seen in doing a lot of hockey, sometimes the goaltenders actually do engage the student section.
Yeah.
And I think in the Valley we see that a number of times because I know at Stevens Point there's a student section right behind the goal. You said Marshfield and others as well. Has there been an interesting experience you've had with the student section during your career?
Well, like I said, Marshfield, after a game, they decided to follow me out to the bus and talk to me a little bit. But, it's just high school years. So,
Turning away from hockey for a few moments, in school, what's your favorite class?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess building trades class. It's pretty cool. So.
And when you have a chance to get away from it, whether get away from school, get away from hockey, what do you like to do to maybe chill out a little bit?
I like to be outside as much as I can, stay active. I like hunting and fishing and doing all that stuff, just staying active. So.
And what's your postgraduate? What do you have any plans yet? Do you know what you want to do after this? Is it more hockey? Is it hockey in school? Is it what do you think you want to do after graduation?
I'd love to play hockey definitely until I'm I can't anymore. But right now I'm looking at possibly being an electrician if hockey doesn't work out after high school. But I'll definitely work my hardest to play as far as I can. So
when you're watching your team, who are the kids that have impressed you this season so far? Because you get a unique view from the goal. You see those guys going the other way. Who's been stepping up for your team so far this year?
I would say Zach Poggle definitely, and also Andrew Franken. They've definitely improved so much in their puck movement and just everything overall. They've just really improved. So definitely looking forward to see where they end up in the future. So, yeah.
Well, not along those lines. I mean, you talked about some of the leadership and how you guide, actions and words a little bit earlier when we were talking. Brett Favre wasn't going to mentor Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, you're after the next goalie's up. After you're done, there's got to be a new person coming in. Do you find yourself trying to, because of whether it's a personal pride or it's because you've invested and this is your team and you like this, or do you take little moments? Does it come across your mind to take little moments and you're gearing that next person up to try to make sure that the goaltending's up to par with what you've established in your time there, or is that not something that are you so busy worrying about other stuff?
I mean, the goaltending, especially for our team, as many shots as we're taking, it's a huge part of our team to make sure we have good goaltending and to make sure they have a good attitude. Like I said, mentality's huge for the goalies on our team. And, I talk to the younger goalies, and like I said, they look after me, and I just, the last thing you want is for them to get down and, worry about losing the games. So I'd say, yeah, I like to talk to the goalies and make sure they're doing all right. So, yeah.
It's not easy when you go through some struggles as a team in terms of wins and losses, but reading between the lines and talking to you, it sounds like the last couple of years with Coach Poggle that there has been, in terms of the experience of doing the things that I think are the right things in terms of making for a real positive experience. It's been there, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. Is that what is that the feeling? Well, and what does Coach Poggle do that has made it for a positive experience?
I'd say, doing stuff as a team outside of hockey, definitely, becoming a family, bonding, doing all that stuff to become, friends and work as a team on the ice. That stuff transfers onto the ice. We're calling for passes and all that stuff, So, yeah, he's definitely helped us move in the right direction with doing the basics in practice and making crisp passes. And, yeah, he's just done a great job overall, so.
You said you watched goaltending since you were very young. Mm-hmm. In terms of goaltenders you've watched, whether at the professional level or right down to the high school level, who are some goaltenders that impressed you, that you said, man, this is a guy that I can really connect with?
What year was that? I was probably a squirt in hockey, and Ian Corbett was the East goalie, and I went to the skate with the Lumberjacks one time, and he gave me his stick. It was a huge deal to me, and I've always watched him. He's always been so quick with his movements and all that. And a bigger goalie, NHL goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, I've watched him a lot too with his games. So, yeah, both those goalies, they've been a huge influence on me. So
I'll say the comparison with you and Fleury is he's known for spectacular saves. Yeah, I think you've made more than a few spectacular saves over your career with the Blue Jacks.
Well, I got the final one.
Okay.
So again, you logged a lot of hours in that net. Been part of that program for a very long time. You alluded to a little bit that you talked to the younger goalies, but somebody now watching you. Like you were watching Ian and other goalies along the way. Now they're watching you. What advice do you have to them when they enter the program as freshmen that would be good advice that would tell them, here's how you make the most of this time here, that when high school can go by in the blink of an eye?
Yeah. I'd say definitely just don't get down on yourself and enjoy the 4 years. I mean, it's such a big part of your life, playing high school hockey. Only so many people can do it, and it can end so quickly. And just enjoy it as much as you can and work your butt off. So,
Jake, thank you very much for coming by.
Absolutely.
Best of luck throughout the rest of the season. I know it's going to, hopefully we'll get this weather through and you can get some games in on Thursday and Friday. The wrap is on Thursday, I think, right? And then finally get back home. It's been a little while since you've played a home game, but best of luck as you continue throughout the season. And again, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Jake Pieper from the East-Merrill United Bluejacks. We got to take a break. We're going to come back with more. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. I'm Chad Holmes along with Jeff Gress. Thanks again to our guests. We had Troy Pieper, the Merrill head coach last hour, and then Jake Pieper from the Bluejacks here tonight. And again, it was a perfect night for a hockey player. All the ice out there. He's the one person I don't worry about slipping on the ice in our parking lot.
Well, and again, Coach Pieper gave us great insight on what he sees in his Blue Jays team and just kind of how their recent couple games have gone. And Jake, just a good knowledge of what he's seen from the goaltender spot and what he's seen over such a long time. So really, it's always interesting. These are always great to talk to the players and coaches to hear about their individual specific programs.
And over the years, I've seen Jake Pieper play. And I just said this to you off the air. If you just go to his page on WisconsinPrepHockey.net, you look at his career numbers each of the years. He's been a 4-year player. And those early years, I mean, you look at the numbers, they don't look impressive. But if you watch him play, and I said it, he makes spectacular saves. He's put into a very difficult position, and he's been somebody that's kept the Blue Jacks in a lot of games. And I think this Blue Jack team has the potential of being a much better team this year with some experience that grows. So, again, really glad to have him on to be able to shine a bit of a spotlight on somebody whose record has not been as great as maybe some others, but I think he has played as well as anybody between the pipes over the last few years.
Well, a credit to his play and a compliment to what he's able to do in the net. It comes from when you said, he can, at that position, he can steal a game from a team.
Yep.
And you don't always get to say that about an individual in a team game.
Well, let's talk a little bit of hockey. We had the Marathon Cup tournament this past weekend, and I just think this is one of the most incredible records. Wausau West has now won the Marathon Cup 16 straight years. I mean, that's insane. It's not like they've been facing, the little sisters of the poor, because, Everest has gone to state during that run. Mosinee has gone to state during that run. There has been some decent Wausau East teams during that run. But every year, Wausau West finds a way. In the Marathon Cup on Thursday of last week, the semifinals, Wausau West defeated East-Merrill United 6-1. Mosinee knocked off DC Everest 5-1. And then on Saturday, the consolation round, Jake Furr played very well for EMU, but Everest earned a 2-0 win. And then Wausau West scored 3 times in the second period to knock off Mosinee 4-1 and earn the Marathon Cup. And then last night, the team that you didn't play in the Marathon Cup, you play on the following Tuesday. So Mosinee defeated EMU by a score of 9-0. Jake was not in net for the Bluejacks. He got a well-deserved night off as he faces all those pucks, and he has games Thursday and Friday, and you see what happens when he's not in between the pipes. And then Wausau West last night defeated Everest 5-1. I wanted to talk about the Warriors because they started off with a couple of tough losses in Eau Claire. Since then, they've won 6 of 7. They're playing very good hockey. They are now 4-0 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference, 6-3 overall. Stevens Point is 3-0 in the WVC, 4-2 overall. Stevens Point played a couple of really good non-conference opponents this week. They defeated Bayport, the number 6 ranked team in the state, 3-2 on Thursday. And then on Saturday, they lost to Eau Claire Memorial 5-2. Eau Claire Memorial, the number 4 ranked team in the state. And it leads to tomorrow, weather permitting, over at the Marathon Park Ice Arena. In Wisconsin Valley Conference hockey, the 2 games are Wausau West versus Stevens Point, whether at KB, Willett, or at Marathon Park. And tomorrow night's schedule for Marathon Park, right here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Going into the season, it felt like Stevens Point was the team to beat. But the way the Warriors are playing, I think that it's really a toss-up game right now. And I hope that they get a chance to play. But either way, they're going to play the games twice coming up. It's a very significant early season matchup in the Wisconsin Valley Conference before Christmas.
Well, and that's what you want high school sports to be, to have something on the line, to mean something, to matter when these athletes get together for that competition. So well-coached teams that have a lot of athleticism on the ice, and 2 teams that you want to see face off, that where I think you're basically saying that the conference title can come down to some of these games.
They usually do.
Yeah. How about the difference in those teams? They play similar styles?
A lot of offense right now. There's a lot of offense. I think Wausau West, they have been battling some injury and some illness on their defensive core. In fact, last night they were forced to take one of their top goal scorers, Thomas Garum, from a forward position and play him as a defenseman because they lost another of their defensemen. In fact, one of their top defensemen, a senior, Ryan Ellis. Hopefully he'll be back for the Stevens Point game, but between injury and illness, the depth factor for the West defensive core has gone way down, and that could be a major problem against Stevens Point. Kate Smiga is one of the top goal scorers in the state of Wisconsin. He is somebody that's incredibly difficult to stop, and also they have plenty of others that are very good offensively. But the Warriors also are very good offensively. It has the potential of, number 1, the offenses, taking over, and number 2, which goaltender. And there's new goaltenders for both teams this year. These not veterans. And this will be the first major conference matchup for both these guys. And it'll be very interesting to see how the goaltending is, because I think it will probably come down to which goaltender has the capability of making the big save. And when I say that, it could mean giving up 4 goals, but making the big save in a 5-4 game. It has a potential for being a very entertaining and high-scoring game. And hopefully it will be played tomorrow night at the Marathon Park Ice Arena, 6:40 pregame, 7 o'clock for the opening face-off. I know that Jeff Gress will be tuned in on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. Right? You'll be
So I know Chad knocks me on hockey all the time on this show.
I don't knock. You knock yourself on hockey.
A little bit of both. But I do listen to try to learn the game, and I do respect what Coach Brandt and the West program has done over the years. And just in listening to your words now, talking about, coaches, they got to plug gaps. They got to get lineups instilled to rise to that moment. And it sounds like they've held their own with the recent sicknesses and not having their lineup at full strength, which is the big chess game that a lot of coaches play across a lot of sports.
Yeah, you sometimes have to move guys to a position they normally don't play, even in basketball.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to move that around. And to see West do that last night and still be able to win over at Green Heck against Everest 5-1, I thought was a very impressive night for the Warriors. Also want to mention last weekend, the Central Wisconsin Storm split a pair of games at the University School of Milwaukee tournament. They lost on Saturday in the championship round, Hayward 4-1. They're now 5-2. They play against the ECA Stars, always a very good matchup Saturday night at Marathon Park, and that'll be our first Storm broadcast of the season. 6:40 Saturday night, airtime 7 o'clock face-off right here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And Storm now 5-2 on the season. They are ranked number 4 in the state. Great goaltending, but right now they're struggling a little bit offensively. They're not getting the goal totals in a couple of these losses they've had, so it'll be interesting to see the Storm for the first time this season, Saturday night again from Marathon Park right here on WXCO. We're going to take a break and then come back, and we're going to look ahead, both in terms of boys and girls basketball, talk a little bit about where the conferences stand. We actually have some conference standings that we can now discuss as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and let's look ahead on the hardwood for high school basketball. We'll start off with the boys, start off with the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Friday night, big night of activity in the WVC. The games on the schedule. Marshfield is at DC Everest. Huge matchup. Marshfield 1-0 in the conference, 2-4 overall. But boy, they played a lot of tough competition in the non-conference. DC Everest is 4-1 overall, 1-0 in the WVC. For Everest being on the home court, I think it's significant. But for Marshfield, they're just tough. They, as we heard from Coach Pieper, they play Marshfield basketball.
Yeah, they're balanced, and I think. It's a tale of two teams. You got the balanced attack from Marshfield. You got Hall with other guys get to go off because he gets a lot of focus, I think. Not that that's a bad thing, but, and Hall dishes the ball pretty well. He moves it around. So I think, big implications to establish yourself between teams that even the coaches in that conference predict can go 1-2. And so I think it's a nice early season matchup for Everest. It's nice to be on your own home court.
Wausau East is at Merrill. Lumberjacks are 2-4 overall. 0-1 in the WVC. Merrill 2-2 overall, 1-0 in the league. It sounds like a game where both teams need to play better defense. I think the Lumberjacks, they're just giving up too many points. They've been scoring quite a few points, but boy, they are giving up a lot of points right now. Need a little bit of defense to go with what looks to be a pretty good offense. And we heard from Coach Pieper that the defense has been a bit up and down. He feels like the offense will show up. As he said, they played 2 high-scoring games a year ago. It could be a very entertaining game in Merrill Friday night.
And I think both teams also look, you want to be on the rebound. Last game that East played, the score is a little bit away. There's a range in there where they got beat up by Everest a little bit for East. And Merrill last night, obviously, Coach Pieper alluded to how they played against Medford. So, and both groups, after you get past the 1-0 marks by Everest and Marshfield and Merrill, even Merrill down to that third place range right now. All these teams are hanging in there. They're all hanging right around, and it's a matter of winning or losing a game that can really shift your position significantly. And you want to establish yourself early on in that W category. So I think that's going to be a good battle tested with the guard capabilities of East and the physicality of Merrill.
and Wausau West is at Stevens Point. The Warriors have not won at Point in a very long time. Warriors are 2-3 overall, 0-1 in the conference. Spash 1-3 overall. They have not played a conference game yet. So, again, I think there's some questions to be answered about Stevens Point at this point. Don't know a whole lot about what the Panthers are up to. And for Wausau West, I know it was a disappointing loss to Merrill last week. They've had a full week now between games, get back on the practice floor and try to bounce back.
Well, and both teams have had a little bit of a layoff, so it's interesting to see with that type of scheduling mentality is that a good thing? I mean, Spash, again, has not played a conference game. Their last game was December 6th against Chippewa Falls, where they came out with a 1-point victory. And I know Spash is younger, so it's kind of probably a time for them to start establishing themselves, and West is going to want to bounce back after that Merrill loss, and have been off for a good week too. And I think West, again, I think they can really stick you defensively, and how they're putting the ball in the basket's a big deal when they come to play.
And Wisconsin Rapids has the Valley bye this Friday. Next Tuesday, a couple of more conference games. DC Everest at Stevens Point. Again, could be a significant game. Marshfield is at Wausau East. And then the other squads, Merrill has a non-conference game at Rhinelander, which has significance because it is part of the Division II bracket for postseason seeding. Wisconsin Rapids goes to an old Valley foe, Antigo, on Tuesday night. And Wausau West travels to Appleton North on next Tuesday night as well. So, again, the Everest Spash game and the Marshfield East games are both significant.
Yeah, and I think for a number of reasons, just jockeying for position is why those games become important within their conference schedule. Everest is going to want to hold on to the top spot. East is going to want to, take one to Marshfield, and that could be significant if that happens because it drops them down from that conference lead. So I think by the time we have the next show, you're gonna see some jockeying of position and some teams with those different conference standings.
Great Northern Conference schedule makers are making us wait for the big matchups because, again, Friday night we will not see the big three go up against each other. Mosinee, Medford, and Northern Pines all 2-0 in the conference. Mosinee, perfect, 6-0 overall. They travel to Rhinelander. And the Hodags have struggled a bit early. 1-4 overall, 0-1 in the conference. Usually, for Mosinee, this is one of the biggest challenges of the season, going up to Rhinelander, facing what is always a very tough team to play. For Rhinelander, it's an opportunity to kind of reset. And Coach Lemons has done a terrific job with the Hodags over the years, but it has been a bit of a tough start.
Well, their one loss is significant that they got beat up by Northland Pines, which expected. Pines is going to could be the conference champion, and then they turned around and lost another game to Shawano by 30, and they're at a 1-4 mark. So for them, they want to just try to get the ball rolling in the right direction. Luckily, they're at home. That's a big deal. But you got Mosinee coming in, and they just got some of those players between Stoffel and Jershely and the supporting cast they've had, and the unblemished mark both in the conference and in their overall record. It's going to be a tough task, and I don't think it's going to be like years past where these teams were everybody was winning their home games, or they would split the aways. And I think Mosinee going to have that handle on them because they want to stay with Pines, Medford, Mosinee, those type of three teams at the top.
Medford, not really going to be challenged, one would think. They travel to Tomahawk. Medford 4-2 overall, 2-0 in the conference. Tomahawk still looking for their first win, 0-4 overall, 0-2 in the conference. But Medford, it was interesting to hear Coach Pieper say that Medford could be the best team in D2.
Well, Baumgartner, Robbie, and Kleist are putting up great numbers for the points that they put in the basket, and they've had 3 big margins of victory. They beat up Anigo, they beat up Merrill. You're going to see the same thing, barring some emergency out of Tomahawk. They're going to beat them up too, and
as long as the roads are plowed.
Yeah. Well, they're going to move to 3-0 and 5-2 in the conference. So again, probably a pretty significant, easy victory for Medford.
Lakeland is at Antigo as well. Both teams looking for their first win. Lakeland 2-3 in the 2-3 overall, 0-1 in the conference. Antigo 0-5 overall, 0-2 in the conference. And I was thinking about this. Antigo, I don't know. I mean, somehow I think maybe they lost something when they left the Valley in terms of maybe interest or something, because so many of their sports, they don't seem to have the same interest that they used to have.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not there.
Well, just on paper, the competitive level isn't what
in many sports.
Wasn't was.
Yeah, not football as well. Numbers were down, and
Yeah, well, and that could change. You don't have the numbers that really can change the game or how things are being run. I don't know. I mean, it's just not. You're right, though. I think in the statement that it's not the same level of competitive, which holds true with them in the Great Northern. Medford beat them up like we said, and then they lost a closer one to Green Bay East on Tuesday. But
Green Bay East is not known as. That's probably a game they were probably looking at to get a win.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's not the scores aren't helping defend that point of being more competitive. As far as Lakeland, though, Lakeland's one of those teams with Fortier. Coach Fortier, first off, does a good job, and then his son, is putting up about 20 a game. I think they could maybe surprise a team or two here out of the big three, just in a game, or they could sneak up on somebody.
That could be the spoiler game,
right?
The one game that makes the big difference.
So they're going to beat Anago on Friday, but I think those other teams, it's not a team you can just bypass when you're talking about the best teams in this conference.
And talking about Northern Pines, they're 6-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference. They have a home non-conference game against Ladysmith Friday, and then an interesting game next Tuesday against Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, who I believe has been in the same bracket in recent years at the very least.
Yeah, when I saw that on the schedule, that's what I figured it was for some playoff contention. I think, but I give Pines, getting out of the area a little bit, moving around, going and playing some other teams that are from a different part of the state and have a little, they're going to be challenged with Wittenberg's physicality. And he'll see if Wittenberg can keep Northland Pines' athleticism in check. That's a tall tale to stop.
Merrillwood South, we got ourselves a massive week coming up. Not only have we had the normal Tuesday games where the teams are facing each other, this week got a Friday set of huge games as well. So you look at Friday and next Tuesday. You got 3 big games and 3 big games. Friday, Newman Catholic, 6-0 overall, 4-0 in the conference. At Auburndale, 5-1 overall, 3-1 in the conference. Massive game. Last year I did the game over in Auburndale. Newman did not play well. They still had a chance to win. Auburndale just makes it tough. They make it tough. It may not be pretty all the time, but they don't want it to be pretty.
No, Auburndale's gonna. They're gonna get around your picks. You're gonna turn the corner, think you have an opening. They're gonna be standing there. They're feisty defensively, and always the offense is never pretty, but it's enough to get the job done. They take smart shots. They take shots that are within their abilities to hit, and they work well as a team together. They're deep. This is a matchup that I'm interested in. Number one, because is Mason playing or not? That changes. Newman's still strong, but it changes the course of how they operate as a team. And for Auburndale, they're deeper. If you look at the minutes on West Sports of what kids are playing, they're going deeper in their rotation. Kids are playing longer, and they have a significant more amount of guys they bring off the bench. Now, both coaches know that too, so they're going to play to their strengths and figure out what they can take advantage of the other team. But as far as the conference, that's a significant game. And, I don't know. I always like those big significant games early on to be in my own home gym. And Newman's not. They're going to have to go over there and play in a tougher environment. That place is going to be packed.
Marathon at Stratford. Marathon perfect. 5-0. 4-0 in the conference. Stratford 3-2, but 1-2 in the conference. Marathon has been playing some outstanding basketball. A year ago, the Red Raiders knocked off Stratford twice in the regular season. Got screwed over by the computer. Had to go to Stratford for the playoffs. Lost over there.
Yeah.
But another huge game. And for Marathon, looking to continue a great start. For Stratford, trying to avoid losing for the 3rd time in the conference very early. And
Stratford's going to want to turn around and perform well on their own home court.
They lost back-to-back at home this week.
Yeah. So that's why they're going to have something to prove. I think it's going to be Coach Schmidt will have them ready. You got to find out how you're going to control Warren. Yeah. That's the big key in that game. I think he can dictate so much, and they're playing well. So I think it's going to be a battle. It isn't going to be a big margin of victory, but I think the Tigers have a little bit more of an uphill climb than the Red Raiders will in that game.
Marathon in Stratford Friday night. Tom Weaver will have the play-by-play from Stratford High School's 6:50 for the pregame, 7:15 for the opening tip on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Edgar is at Assumption. Assumption is over 500, 3-2, 2-1 in the conference, but they did fall to Newman last night. Edgar, 2-3 overall, 2-2 in the league. You don't want to be at the bottom. And, really, I mean, this is a significant game if you want to stay in the mix within striking distance of those teams that are winning so often near the top.
Yeah, well, if Edgar wins, that's going to flip-flop those two, the spots that they're in right now, and currently in 4th and 5th, and depends on how other teams do yet, but that'll flip, because a couple of those teams with Newman and Marathon and Auburn will establish themselves with 0 or 1 losses. They're all probably going to stick around at the top, and whoever wins that game too can propel themselves to hang on. If Auburndale loses, they can jump right up with them and hang back in the mix. So I think both of them. It's a must-win game for both of them at that point to keep yourself established, to be hanging around in the middle of the pack of that conference.
And once we get through those games on Friday, then they go through the weekend, and then next Tuesday again, another big night of conference play in the Merriwood South. You talk about another massive game. I mean, Marathon at Newman next Tuesday, right here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9. In fact, I will be over there for that one. Pay a visit to the Newman gym for the Red Raiders and the Cardinals. I mean, these teams, Friday and Tuesday, both Marathon and Newman have incredibly big games. I mean, these are just huge.
And it doesn't, whether they win or lose on Friday, that's still going to it's still in the mix of being a significant game, just based on it. Plus the,
because these teams are going to knock each other off during the course of the year. No one's going to go undefeated.
It's going to go. It's going to just get to be more of a war every time they take the floor. I don't know. What do you say? What do you got to say? That is, it's going to be a war. They're going to play hard, and again, it'll be interesting to see with Eli Gustafson.
Newman has played well against Marathon in recent years.
Right.
I mean,
very well.
In the big team against the big teams in the conference, Newman has had better performances against Marathon than they have, say, against Auburndale and Stratford.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see, because we talked earlier on when we were going through the conferences and the teams early on. Eli Gustafson is stepping up, becoming consistent for Newman, and now he's gonna be the guy that's gonna have to, whether he's in the middle of his zone or he's playing man to man, he's gonna get that call on Warren, and I could even see if he gets little foul trouble. I mean, Croc's big enough and has the wingspan to guard that too, and Connor's feisty on defense. So it'll be interesting to see how those two teams combat each other.
Also next Tuesday, Stratford at Edgar and Auburndale at Assumption. Again, there's not a bad matchup in the bunch.
No. Again, Auburndale's going to want to keep pace where they're at, so they're going to be looking to get Assumption, and I think they will with their depth and their guard play. They'll match Assumption equally, but the Stratford at Edgar, it becomes a physical war sometimes, and still looking to, I guess, learn a little bit more about Stratford's kind of who they haven't seemed to establish themselves yet as to who they are. They're still, Coach Schmidt has his ways of what he gets the most out of each player and their disciplined actions on the court, but sometimes you got to match a little firepower with that. So looking to see what their strengths are. Is it coming from inside or guard play?
And also wanted to touch on a big one in the Merriwood North Friday. Athens at Rib Lake, the top two teams in that league. Athens playing very well. Their only loss came to Newman, and they play the Cardinals very tough. Athens 4-1, 3-1 in the conference. Rib Lake 3-2, 2-2 in the league. And that game played in that little gym at Rib Lake. That should be a really good matchup.
Yep, I'm sure it will easily be packed as it is on those games. But I think Athens gonna just be more athletic, and they're gonna all play with some of the guys they have in Yankee and Sheehan. Yankee's averaging, if I'm 19 and 13, I think. Well, he's averaging a double, and I think that's gonna take the course of that game. Even in that smaller gym where you go down, you're going in that gym being down a couple points due to that home court advantage.
And finally, CWC North Marion at Northern Lutheran on Thursday, weather permitting. Starting to look a little bit doubtful, but the schedule actually says Northern Lutheran plays 3 times in the next week. We haven't seen that very often. Right. Home against Marion Thursday, Rochelle at home Monday, at Nakusa on Tuesday. For their sake, they need some gameplay.
Yeah, you got it. They're 1-1 overall and 1-0 in the conference. So Thursday's probably looking pretty bleak. But to get a couple other games and at this point, whether you have the practice reps or not, you just want to play.
Turning to the girls, Valley on Friday night. Big one at West. I'll be over at the West Field House. Stevens Point at Wausau West. Both teams 1-0 in the conference, 4-3 overall. I think, again, when you look at the Valley, you got West, Marshfield, and Stevens Point are the teams to look at. And this is an early season test for both these squads.
Right, I think, and they've just battled over the years, just with those Spash teams where they had those elite scorers, and then Coach Weinkoff having his girls grinding it out on defense and making those transition points become their offense. So I think it's another great matchup. Both teams sitting at 1-0 and to just continue to get that foothold on the top of that conference, because I think Spash and Marshfield can definitely hang around with West being the ones with the target on their back.
And we'll have that live online only, bullfallsradio.com and Sports 2 stream. I'll be on the air at 7 for that one, and we'll also air on delay after the Marathon Stratford boys game Friday night here on your home for high school sports coverage in Wausau, Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Also, Marshfield will be home against DC Everest, Merrill at Wausau East, Chippewa Falls at Wisconsin Rapids non-conference game. For those three games, Marshfield, I think, is a big favorite against the struggling Evergreens. But Merrill and East, both teams 0-2 in the conference. Merrill, I think, has been more impressive so far early in the season for Coach DeBoer. I think that's a big game for his team.
Yeah, again, I'm just happy that they've scrounged out a couple wins after the jinx of the show that was predicted by Coach. But, Merrill's looked to get East the last couple of years, and then those were, when you say, hey, we're going to win this game and get this game, and here's 2 wins, I think that's 2 that Merrill can have when all is said and done at the end of the conference schedule.
GNC, there are actually a couple of undefeateds, Lakeland and Rhinelander. Rhinelander's 2-0 in the conference, 4-4 overall. Lakeland hosts Antigo, who's 2-1 in the conference Friday. Rhinelander is at Mosinee. That should be an interesting matchup as well. But Lakeland's still the team to beat. But that Rhinelander-Mosinee game, I think for Mosinee, it's an opportunity to show how this new group of Mosinee players that replaced that great group of seniors from a year ago is progressing. Right.
I think it's another way that they're going to look to show that the lineup that's out there, the new kids on the block, so to speak, are going to be trying to get that foothold on, battling for that second place spot right now. Because I think, again, barring what we said about Lakeland's got a good foundation at that first place. But I think for Mosinee, looking to get one, and Rhinelander's, not. Hasn't been a slouch, and they've had those prolific scores. Mm-hmm. They got a Lamers girl averaging 26 again, and they've ridden out some of those scores to help get those W's in those games.
Merrillwood South, the conference game scheduled for tomorrow, weather permitting, a marathon at Newman. Newman, again, a couple of wins this past week, 5-4 overall, 1-4 in the conference. Marathon, 3-4 overall, 2-3 in the league. I think this is a pretty good matchup. I love the way Marathon plays defense, and I think that's going to be the biggest factor in this game. Newman has to take care of the basketball because Marathon's going to put pressure on. They're going to try to force turnovers, get some easy baskets. If Newman is able to take care of the basketball, then the Cardinals have a pretty good chance.
And I think it's a significant game in the sense, Marathon wants to keep creeping that record up to 500 and over. And for Newman, a lot of their wins have come non-conference. So they want to show that they can get that. And I think, like you said, Marathon plays good defense. Newman being a younger team has to show that they can make sure they take care of the ball with those pressure situations that Coach Snyder's going to throw at them. But, Newman coming off 2 good wins and beating a Spencer team, and then that Abbotsford win. So I think they should be brooding with confidence, weather permitting, if they get it in, though.
And a big one as well scheduled tomorrow, Auburndale at Assumption. Assumption 7-0 overall, 4-0 in the conference. Auburndale 5-2 overall, 3-2 in the conference. A couple of what you call maybe inexplicable losses in the crossovers, but Auburndale still has some talent.
Yeah, Owie and Grimm and Kriegs score points for them. They have struggled as of late. They stubbed their toe a couple times. They're not stubbed it, but they've got beat by Abby in the crossover and Phillips in the crossover, and that's where these games really have become important. Where it's good that they mean something now, because now teams have to can't go to sleep on any given night. And Assumption, it was not challenged at Chequamegon, and looking to they have Auburndale coming to their gym, which will be a good game, and those two teams fighting for those top spots.
And quickly want to mention as well in the Merriwood North, Phillips is at Athens. Phillips 6-1 overall, 4-1 in the conference. Athens 8-0 overall, 5-0 in the league. 2 very good teams in the Merriwood North
with plenty of scoring. Coker and Levicka and Hartwig for all 14 putts. You got Eggebrecht, and there's one other girl on that Phillips team. That's you never know. One of those games could come down to what it means for the conference, and both those teams know it. And that's what high school the game should be about, is having these pressure stressed matchups to make the most of the team, to put it on the line so that where you're going to start to establish that foundation to show where you're going to stand at the end of the season. So I think a big matchup there to see who's going to come out front in that conference.
A little more than a minute to go, and I had a question for you.
Quickly.
How long does it take to get over a tough loss for a coach?
So two things. Coach Jeff Brugink, who used to coach at West, talked about his dad that coached at Clintonville. He said one of the best personality traits his dad had was he never took any win too big and never took any loss too hard. So I think it really comes down to person. I'm more like Coach Pieper was talking about. It took me a while to get over it. The players, they got back on the bus sometimes. They got to their video games, talked to their girlfriends, talked to their parents, and they could move on from it. For me, it was hard to get over it, but you had to get to that next practice or the next game. So I think whether any coach has lost a tough one on the last night they played on Tuesday, the next practice, the next game is most meaningful. And then there's coaches that they keep their personality in check no matter what happens.
Interesting. Thanks again to Coach Pieper for joining us earlier, and also to Jake Furr as well from the Bluejacks. In our last 20 seconds, what's the best game that you are looking forward to seeing this week? Off the top of your head.
Just I will bias because I work there. Newman Auburndale. I want to see if Mason Prairie doesn't play, how do they do with that? And then, that's another significant one for
Marathon Newman.
Yeah, and the Marathon.
You can name the top two right there.
I mean, that's just off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of them, and I apologize I'm missing them.
No problem. We'll talk to you next week here on WXCO.